Met Gala is one of, if not the biggest event in fashion for the entire year, and I just watched it live. Every year has a theme, and this year it was super fine tailoring black style. I have wanted to recreate a Met Gala look for so long. This is like one of my dreams, but I was watching it live and I wasn't getting inspired. I'll say that. I really loved Tiana Taylor's look, and I was considering doing that. It seemed like a lot of work. I really enjoyed the jacket for Iowa Debris' look, but then Laura Harrier walked the blue carpet. I love this look. I love Zach Posen. He already had some of my favorite Met Gala looks ever, but he was also my favorite judge on Project One Way. The whole look consists of a raw denim corseted vest, a button-up shirt with these flowy sleeves, and double satin wide leg dress pants. I really love the off-white monochromatic look. So I didn't think I would find much, but I first looked to my local fabric shop just to see what I could find. I couldn't find any denim in the same beige color, and I couldn't find anything sheer enough for the top, but it seemed like some of the satins would work. I picked up 3 yards of this color. We have the pants fabric, so we're gonna start from the bottom and work our way to the top. Disclaimer, I am very much not a professional. I wing things so much. I mess up. I'm just having fun. I traced jeans for a basic pant shape. They're a bit bigger than my regular size, so that's good for the drop crotch and looseness that hers has. I traced the back as well, and I cut these pieces on muslin. I basically just cut these pieces on opposite sides on the folded fabric because I didn't know how wide I wanted my pants to be yet. I cut that out with seam allowance, and then I sewed the 2 back pieces along here with a French seam. This is maybe one of the only times I've had to do French seams, but you sew it wrong sides together first and then press it, and then you sew it again right sides together, about a 1/4 inch from the seam. I had to do a lot of French seams for this look. And for the front, I also tried out a fly zipper for the first time. So this is Fly Zipper 101 based on 3 YouTube videos and 1 written tutorial. I cut out a curved piece with these dimensions. You sew a bit of the crotch part and then place the curved piece on the left pants piece, and so that's your left side when you're wearing it. I folded and pressed that over, and you also cut out a little fly flap and fold that in half right sides together and sew on the bottom to close it. You place the zipper on the right side and the flap over it, and sew. Then you keep everything in place by sewing along the edge of the curved piece, but with everything sandwiched in between, so you sew on top. I hope you were following that, because I was not. I ended up making each of the pant pieces about 25 inches wide, so I cut off all that extra fabric. I also added pockets, yay! I traced the size I wanted with this crinkly muslin, and then I cut that out for the inside, and then I made a back piece with the original fabric. I sewed along here and top stitched on the muslin satin piece, and then you basically just sew around the curved pocket part and finish that edge. I never show that because it's boring to show, but I promise I do it sometimes. With the pocket done, I sewed the front and back pant pieces together with another French seam. So I made the pants really big, so I needed to pleat the waist to fit me. I probably should have calculated that out, but I did whatever looked good. I did 1 pleat on each side of the back, and then I think 3 on each front piece. I also tried out a curved waistband to make it more fitted to me. I cut out 2 pieces, sewed those 2 together, and then sewed one side to the waist part of the pants. To close the waistband, I just folded it down and top stitched. I added this button where it needed to go in the center and hand sewed that down. When I'm adding buttons that'll have a lot of tension put on them, I usually add 4 or 5 pieces of thread to the needle. The hardest part of these pants was actually the hem. So the only white shoes I have are these tall Sabrina Carpenter shoes, so I had to adjust this folded part here to reach the floor in those heels. They're 5 inches or something. Also, all of this would have been much easier if I got way more fabric, probably 6 yards total, and then I made each pant piece a double layer. It would have helped one with the folded up hem, and also just making the whole pants look less thin and cheap. But anyway, what I did first was make a tiny little hem by hand sewing, which actually took quite a while. I got through a whole episode of The Curse, and then I pulled it to create that folded look on both sides, and I hand sewed that in the back as well. I also did a little stitch in the ditch on the side seams for more security. There's also this press part on the center of each pant leg, so I folded each piece in iron. The stitching on hers seemed like it was hand sewn, so I tried that first, but it's kind of a big old waste of time because I like the look way better with my machine, and that took 2 minutes. So now the pants are done, let's move on to the shirt. The top was definitely the hardest to get right, especially with the most important part, the sleeves. I went to the LA Fashion District for this fabric. It was my first time really going and shopping there. It's really bad for me because I'm terrible at haggling. I just take the price that they want. The original fabric for this is a cotton organdy, but that was really hard to find in stores. I basically just had to search for any cotton that was sheer enough. I looked through a lot of fabric shops on each street, and there was a lot of just regular cotton, but it wasn't really what I wanted. The only place that I found something close was Michael Levine. It's basically just like a Joann. You don't have to haggle or anything. You just look through each aisle. I saw this 100% cotton that I thought would work because it looked the sheerest. It did seem stiff, but it also seemed a little shiny. It reminded me of organza, but it was $15. $15. We went to Michael Levine first, and I was like, I need to find anything else because I don't want to spend $15 on this fabric. But I just shelled out $30 for 2 yards, which, spoiler alert, is definitely not enough for the whole top. If you're making this, like, get at least 3 yards, I think. The first thing I did was plot out the sleeves on paper. So one sleeve would consist of 5 panels that all extend out towards the middle. The sleeves are tight at first and then they taper out, so I planned out 8 inches from the top is when I would start tapering the regular fit sleeve. Okay, so I used this button-up shirt as a guide to trace the sleeve pattern. I also had to mark out how big each panel would be, so the width of the sleeve was 13 inches, so I made each panel around 2.6 inches, but I also kind of just eyed it. I really could not waste any part of this fabric, so finally I made a mock-up using muslin. It didn't look the best. I was gonna have to make the whole sleeve shorter so it didn't fold up in this ugly way, and then make it tighter before the tapering. But I didn't use French seams for the mock-up, and I think that makes it a bit tighter. I also just wanted a bigger sleeve in general, so every piece was gonna have to be wider. So though it pains me, I made another muslin mock-up. This looked much more what I wanted. I didn't love the way it fell and draped, but I was hoping I could make the real fabric stiffen up to hold its shape. So using this pattern, I turned to the real fabric. This tested my spatial intelligence. Oh, that was not fitting. Eventually, after flipping it every which way and slightly trimming some pieces, I got it all to work though. It did not leave much for the base of the shirt though. Planning that out was rough. I used the same button-up shirt for a front and back base, and I don't know which YouTuber taught me this, but to trace something better, I often use the method where you put a piece of paper under the piece of clothing and then using a pen, make little dots where you need to trace, and then you mark it with a pen later. Anyway, I traced that, but for the front and the back, I only had enough for about this much at the bottom and then here for where the collar part goes. So I cut out this tiny little piece for the front, and I didn't film any of this for some reason, but I cut a back piece on the fold and then I sewed the front and the back piece together at this part with the French seam. Okay, we cut out all the pieces for both sleeves, so time to assemble that. It was really important that I did French seams because it would definitely be shown. I would trim as close to the seam as I could so it would be clean when I flipped it around and sewed right sides together. I sewed each piece together in place and it was starting to take shape. It looked pretty cool. I ironed a lot to make the seams look better. So after sewing the sleeves at the side, I pinned them to the base shirt piece and got to sew and all that. I definitely did not have enough of the original fabric for the collar and the cuffs and everything. I had to take that out elsewhere. I went to a Goodwill near me and I got a basic white dress shirt for this fabric. It did not match well in shade, but I beg you to ignore that. And to be honest, I did not have much of a method to this or calculations. I just eyed things that looked like it would be okay and it would fit. So I cut out and folded this little piece to go in the front edge of the shirt. I patterned out this little collar stand, a little bit on this one, but also just kind of how I thought it should look. I cut 2 of those boys and then I sewed one along the top. I made this tall collar and I sewed it right sides together. Then I placed that sandwich in between both collar stands. You finish off that curved part here to make it look clean, and look at that. I top stitched down to close it, and aside from the cuffs, the shirt was pretty much done. So starching time. This whole time I figured that I was gonna have to starch the top so it would hold shape like Laura's does. This was my first time starching and my last. I just got some basic cornstarch. I used half a cup of it and 9 cups of water, and to quote Ariana Grande, you mix it and mix it and mix it and mix it before and while it boils for recipe said like a minute, but I definitely did it longer than that. I cannot show the process of me dipping the shirt in this concoction because it was an extremely quick and messy experience. Here's the aftermath as I was letting it dry, and yeah, it looks like that. You're supposed to wring it out depending on how starchy you want it to be. I barely did because I thought it wouldn't work, and so I thought I would need as much starching as I could get. So to remedy, I first tried Cope and be like, it'll be fine once I iron it, but no, not really. It was really flaky as well, which made the fabric less sheer, but at least the crunch was very satisfying. So I decided to wash it out and try again, but to my surprise and slight dismay, it still remained really starched. Definitely less so, but it was still very cloudy, so I washed it a second time. And once that dried, it was looking much better. After ironing it, it was pretty much where I wanted it to be. I hadn't put on the cuffs yet to make ironing the sleeves easier, but I used the collar pattern as a guide. They're pretty much the same height. I just made it a bit wider than my wrists. I cut out 4 of those pieces and sewed both right sides together. I also used a loose stitch to gather the ends of the sleeve, and I sandwiched that in between the cuff layers. I top stitched all that, and then I had these little snaps that I sewed on so I could close the cuffs, and I added 2 little buttons because hers has gold buttons. And that was that top. Next is the vest. I also got this off-white denim, or technically canvas fabric, in the fashion district. It was a pretty easy find. I drafted this on my dress form first, but I'll be honest, I did not use this at all. I ended up just using muslin to trace the alphabet dress I had made because it was similar fit to how I wanted it. I had to make a lot of adjustments, but it felt like a good starting point. I did use my just form to try to see how the folded part would go and how much extra fabric I needed. Also, Laura's has a seam here. I marked how that would go with tape, but this is not where I wanted it. I had to change the pattern piece later. But I did have enough of the real fabric to make a mock-up piece of it, so if I did anything wrong, I would just use it as a lining. I cut that out, and I also drafted a back piece with the alphabet dress. It was really hard to catch glimpses of the back of Laura's, but this felt like a good enough shape. I cut that out, and I sewed each piece together. So this is the updated front piece. I wanted the seam to be a little bit higher. I marked that with a pin here. So I cut that out and I tried it on with pins holding the seam. It seemed off to a good start. I was getting the shape together, so I sewed it for real. Using the mock-up lining pieces, I put that right sides together with the front and back piece and sewed around, leaving the bottom open. You turn that inside out and it's already taken shape. Hers also has a small white piece on the folded part, so I used the satin fabric I had for the pants and I placed it where I wanted it to go. This is something I definitely should have done before sewing on the lining piece, but c'est la vie. I hand sewed it on with a thick needle and I folded and flipped every little part in place where it needed to go. I wish I could tell you how I measured this, but again, I just kind of eyed it. There was always at least one part that I messed up, and it was these boning channels. I don't know. Hers is corseted, so I thought I could get away with making these parts here boning channels and nothing else. But I used this plastic boning, and that doesn't have enough support. If I really wanted it to work, I could have used steel boning. I may try to fix it eventually. Anyway, there's a part on the back that is used to cinch the waist. It looks like 2 arrows. I patterned, cut out, and sewed pieces like these. I didn't know how long I was supposed to make them, so I just had each meet in the middle on the back. Before I sewed those down on the side seams, I made this little flap for the back and sewed that in place. I used paper to mark out how I wanted the bottom of this vest to go, and then I just got no more footage of that, so cut it out, right sides together. All those words I use often. Maybe I was in a rush because I also didn't film the process of these pockets. So it has pockets. I had to hand sew a bit around the satin parts because that curve was very tricky. Anyway, there's also this little flap here. I cut out a shape like it and I folded it and pressed it where necessary. I sewed it on like this first and then right sides together with the edge of the pocket and flap to look like this. It looked much cleaner than I expected it to. Then it was hammering time. I got these jean buttons from a store in the fashion district. I got so lucky because I looked in so many trim stores and I couldn't find anything, but these were pretty perfect. Pretty great store. Had some historical relics and also the materials to make Jenna Ortega's Met Gala dress, which I also wanted to do, but I am not. Anyway, so you need a hammer to button these on. I don't own a hammer. I was going to use a frying pan. Did not pan out well. My friend gave me a hammer. These clips are embarrassing. I promise I tried. Like, what if I was fighting for my life? Maybe then I'd find the momentum, but anyway, my friend did it for me. Thank you, friend. My contribution was marking where it needed to go. There were 7 in the front and then 3 on this back tab here. I sewed corresponding buttonholes. I still don't have the foot that I need to do it, so it's done manually with zigzag stitches. I think that's it actually. So I got the most compliments I've ever gotten in an outfit in this. People were yelling at me from their cars and opposite sides of the streets. I had a nice older man tell me it was a lovely outfit. I think it's the monochromatic look and maybe specifically white look that makes it look kind of regal. Obviously there were things that I would want to fix, but overall I'm excited. When I started going outside with these looks and getting a snack or going somewhere, it was supposed to be relevant, and now I'm just at Waba Grill. I mean, it was good Waba Grill. I had a chicken teriyaki bowl. It was quite an excellent day, I have to say. It was a very hot day though. I was very happy to take this off. Thank you so much for watching. I never filmed an outro, so here we are among nature and architecture. This video was supposed to be done in May, but now it's June. I think you're going to be watching this in July anyway. I gotta sew quicker. I appreciate your specific view. Thank you so much. Now it's getting really windy and I'm trying to do this before the bell sounds. Okay, bye.